Hey friends, Sleepy here, and welcome to another video in my community question series. This is episode 34, and the question for today's video is, what is your guys' favorite console generation of all time? Not like a specific console, but a generation that's your favorite, really the first generation, second, maybe the sixth, maybe current ninth gen is your favorite. I'd love to know what your guys' answer is to this question. You guys can answer the question in one of two ways. You can either answer the question as a comment, or you can film a video response. Maybe this is one of those questions that you feel like, I'd rather film a video response to get my point across. A comment just won't do it justice. Feel free to film a video response. I just ask if you guys do film a video response just to let me know about it so that I can check it out. I would hate to miss it. I'm not always alerted by YouTube when people upload videos, and I would hate for you guys not to get credit, and I would hate to miss it. I will also post a link to your video response as a comment so other people can check it out as well. Now, I will be holding a contest at the end of this question series, and you guys get entries into that contest by participating in these questions by answering them. You guys can get entry by doing a comment. If you leave a comment, you get one entry. If you film a video response, you get another entry. If you do both, you can actually get 2 entries per video. So you can go back at any time. As long as my contest hasn't concluded, you guys can go back and answer those previous questions. I've got 33 other questions before this one that you guys can answer. Don't feel bad if you missed any. It happens. Even if you go back and answer my first question, my 8th question, my 20th question, it doesn't matter. I would love to read your guys' responses to my older questions. I always love interacting with you guys. If you guys do want to go back, feel free to do those, as you'll have a chance to win some prizes. Now, the grand prize is going to be a console I'm going to give away. Right now, I currently have 2 for the contest, but I'm looking into some others. I have a PlayStation 2 and a Nintendo Wii. The grand prize winner will be able to choose the console of their choice and some games to go with it. So it would be great. Maybe you don't have a PlayStation 2 or you don't have a Wii and you'd like to start that library. If you win the contest, it'll be a great way for you to start a new console with some new games. I also have some other prizes for runner-ups who will win some games, gift cards and stuff, so there will be multiple winners, and I will be holding that contest here at the end of this question series, so you guys got plenty of time to answer and enter in it. Now, I'm going to answer the question for you guys. What is my favorite console generation of all time? And for me personally, the 7th generation is my absolute favorite. The Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, and the Nintendo Wii. Personally, for me, I feel that gaming really peaked in 7th generation. We really had a huge transition from standard definition gaming from PlayStation 2 original Xbox days to the 7th generation. That's when I feel gaming really has peaked. We did have some component cables and stuff for PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox, but they never did like 1080p gaming or anything. When we got into Xbox 360 days is when we really started getting into HD gaming. That's when we got some of the newer TVs started to release, and eventually, they released versions of the Xbox 360 PS3 consoles that were compatible with HDMI cords, and gaming really started to take off for me personally in 7th generation. The graphics got much better, the games got larger, it had so much more features and stuff, so it was a really fun time to be gaming. It's also when online gaming really took off, and we had some, especially with Microsoft and Xbox Live. It started on the original Xbox, and PlayStation 2 had somewhat of online, but not a very robust online service or anything. But it really took off when the 7th generation Xbox Live, they took everything that was great about the original Xbox and just made it even better on the 360. You had access to game demos, which is cool, so you could download demos and try out games before they came out. It was really cool, great way for you to try out games. I played a lot of demos, and it made me fall in love with a lot of games, and I bought them. Also, we had access to having DLC where they were to add stuff to games, expansion packs, and you could get weapon skins and character packs. That's when they started to really add stuff to the game after they were released, and they kept supporting the game. It was really cool having all this extra content and stuff that you didn't really get in previous generations. You would sometimes get like a map pack or something released physically on a disc, or an expansion pack that you could play, but it wasn't like it was in 7th generation where they really started adding to it. Also, you had the whole thing with online gaming, that started on like the original Xbox, that then the 360, it really brought up online gaming to the world. It was just really cool being able to play games with people from other parts of the country or even other parts of the world. It's cool. You can play with somebody from Europe. You can play with somebody from Japan, Australia. It was just cool being able to interact and play games with people from other parts of the world. When I was a kid, we had gaming, I couldn't even like imagine what like playing online would have been like then. It just was so cool, playing locally. But once you got into the online world, it opened up so many possibilities and just millions of people you could play with. So it was really cool. I also feel too that like 7th generation is when like developers is like one of the last times the developers really took chances. We got a lot of great new IPs then. They didn't have to have a guaranteed hit success to try. A lot of studios started up, some left during the 7th generation. But I feel like developers really took risks and chances on certain games. We got a lot of good AAA games. We also got a lot of AA games. I don't really see a whole lot of these kind of games being released in 8th and now in the 9th generation. There are some new IPs, but they really aren't like they were in 7th generation days. Like, we really got spoiled with a lot of wonderful titles. Now, I've got a stack here of some PlayStation 3, some Xbox 360, and Wii titles that I wanted to talk about. Some of the ones that I loved, I wanted to highlight. There's some personal favorites and just a little bit of info about them. Really cool game. So we'll start off with PlayStation 3 here. I loved Grand Theft Auto 4 when it was released on Xbox 360 and PS3. I've got the Grand Theft Auto episodes from Liberty City here. This was the expansion packs, The Lost and the Damned, The Ballad of Gay Tony. They added to Grand Theft Auto 4. On the standalone version, you can play both of those. What I really loved about Grand Theft Auto 4 is it took what was awesome about the original trilogy that was on PS2 and original Xbox, and it just ramped everything up. We had to go back to Liberty City that was from Grand Theft Auto 3, but they reworked the whole map. They made it a much better city, had a much better layout. The game was just much larger in scope. The graphics were amazing. The music was awesome. I loved the characters, the story. They just took everything that was great about those old Grand Theft Auto games and just made them even better on the Xbox 360 and PS3. And then they released the expansion packs for it that expanded with new characters to play through, a new story and missions and things to find, and really expanded the game. And I absolutely loved it. Grand Theft Auto 4 is one of my favorite games, and it was awesome having it in the 7th generation. Next up, another one I want to talk about is the MotorStorm series, only on PlayStation. I got MotorStorm and MotorStorm Pacific Rift. These were awesome racing games where you got to race dirt bikes, ATVs, different kinds of vehicles. This one had 8 vehicle classes, 4 players, split screen co-op, 1 massive island to explore. Welcome to Pacific Rift. They also did have a PSP version of this game. I love the MotorStorm series. Fantastic game. If you've never played them, you love racing games, I can't recommend these enough. It's really awesome. The graphics were great. They still hold up pretty well today. The controls were done well. I just love the physics. Everything about this racing game was awesome. Love the MotorStorm ones. Another game here for PlayStation 3 was the Uncharted Drake's Fortune. We had the Uncharted series started on PlayStation 3. There's a trilogy of games. They're really awesome. The 4th one was released on PlayStation 4. Fantastic games that I highly recommend. You get to play as Nathan Drake. Plays a lot like Tomb Raider, so it's a platform adventure game. There's some gunplay. You get to control vehicles and stuff, different fights. Get to explore, puzzles to solve. It was a really fun game. Definitely a must-own if you have a PlayStation console. Highly recommend the Uncharted games. Another one here is Yakuza 3, which I was a huge fan of the Yakuza series. It started on PlayStation 2. You had 1 and 2, and then they did release Yakuza 3, 4, and 5, and then Dead Souls, which 5 was a digital only. But the Yakuza series was really fun because you got to go through the Japanese mafia, and you got to go through story, and there's some silly stuff and some serious stuff and funny moments and stuff. Just overall was a really good series. And it really took advantage of the PlayStation 3's hardware and really upgraded the graphics from the PS2. Now, of course, you can play these on modern consoles. They did port these to the Xbox One and Series and PlayStation 5 and stuff, and PlayStation 4, but they really were good on the PlayStation 3, and I had a blast with this series. Another one here, which I'm pretty sure this was a launch title, is Untold Legends Dark Kingdom, which this is a cool action RPG isometric game. I love this game. Played with my brother. It is co-op. Has a really good story. I never did beat it, so I need to go back and actually beat this one. being an early PlayStation 3 game, you know, the graphics are going to be kind of dated by today's standards, controls and stuff, but it still plays pretty well today. A lot of fun with this one. If you guys do love isometric action RPGs, I highly recommend this, but we just don't get games like this anymore. This is exclusive to PlayStation 3 only, not released on anything else, as this is a Sony Online Entertainment release. Fantastic game, though. Highly recommend that one. Next one here. This was awesome. This is what got me into the Souls series, what started it. It was Demon's Souls, only on PlayStation 3. Now, this did get a port, a remastered version for PlayStation 5 that really updated graphics and had a content to it, but this is the game that started the Souls series, where we eventually got Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. We got Elden Ring. We got Bloodborne. We got that Sekiro game, but this is what started it, the From Software. Fantastic game. Sadly, the online functionality of this has been shut off. You can no longer go online, but you used to be able to invade other people's worlds, and you could try to kill them. They could try to kill you. You could do co-op stuff to fight the various bosses, because this game is known for being super difficult. I remember when my brother first popped it in and had me try it out, and he was like, "Jeremy, this ain't your typical Elder Scrolls or your typical third-person action RPG. He's like, this game you're gonna die, then you're gonna die some more, and then after that you're gonna die even more until you learn how to play properly. Super difficult. Even your most basic enemies can be challenging at times. You have these epic boss battles. The games don't always have like the most deep story, but they are full of rich lore and stuff that you can experience, some quests and stuff you can go on, an overall narrative you go through, but most of the experience is actually playing through the game, the various giant bosses you fight, and just really awesome, the different enemies you'll run into and the weird characters that you interact with. It was awesome. Highly recommend the Demon's Souls games. If you've never played it before, definitely recommend it. It's awesome. Another one here, this is a sequel to a game that I played on PlayStation 2, and this is called Genji Days of the Blade, which I loved Genji on the PlayStation 2, and this was the sequel to it, which you has access to more characters to play as. Great story, takes place in 1187 Japan, an era defined by honorable samurai and epic battles amidst the turmoil between clans. A legendary group of warriors band together to avenge a fallen family and uphold the Genji name. High definition detailed immerses you in a violent ballet of clashing katana blades. This also had like fighting demon creatures and stuff in Japanese mythology, and you have different weapons and powers and stuff. Really fun game. Plays kind of like Devil May Cry, or kind of like with God of War aspect to it, some Tomb Raider aspects, you know, just was a really fun adventure title that I loved, and I need to go back and actually finally beat this one. I got really far in it and stopped playing it. Highly recommend this one. And the final PS3 game we're going to talk about is God of War 3, which I love the first two God of War games on PS2. This third one just took everything that was great with those and just made it even better, more epic. The boss battles were massive. It was just huge. The graphics got improved. Now, they did eventually port the first two God of War games to PlayStation 3, and then, of course, they reported them to PlayStation 4 and stuff and updated the graphics even more. But I loved the God of War series, and God of War 3 was one of the best of the original God of War games. Highly recommend this one. Was awesome, fantastic. Just loved the story, playing as Kratos, fighting the gods and the crazy creatures and the naked women and the blood and gore and everything. Was just amazing. Highly recommend that. Now we'll talk about some we'll talk about some Xbox 360 titles. First up here is a game that actually just recently got ported to the Xbox One and PS4 and Switch, and that is a game called Risen, which this originally was only on PC and Xbox 360, created by Piranha Bytes. So if you guys have ever played any of the Piranha Bytes games, you guys know their games are kind of janky. They're AA games. They're not going to be the best in the world, but they are still fun. They also made the Elix games. There's several other games, the Gothic games and stuff that they made, and I loved Risen when I first played it. It was awesome. Really cool game. This actually has like 4 different stories to go through, because you can join 4 different factions and there are different endings and stuff. It is backwards compatible on Xbox Series consoles and the Xbox One. There are 3 of them total, Risen 1, 2, and 3. Sadly, 3 is not backwards compatible, but the first 2 are. And like I said, there is that new port of it that was of the original one that was released for the new consoles, which is cool. Fun story. I like the gameplay in it. It can be a little janky at times, but that's how Piranha Bytes games are. They don't really hold your hand. so you kind of have to figure out what you're doing. But once you learn how to play this game and you master the game's mechanics, it's a fantastic game. It's not easy, but it's a really fun and really rewarding, and I just absolutely love this game. It's kind of janky, like I said, but really fun title. Next up, I have a game here called Overlord, which this was awesome. Codemaster's game. I first played the demo of this, fell in love with it, so I had to get the actual game. I did beat this one and got through the story, had a lot of fun with it. You play as an overlord, you're an evil character, and then you have these little goblin minions that you can then control as you go through the world and have them do different things for you and loot stuff, and you get to go through a fun story. They actually released a sequel, Overlord 2, which I never did beat. I need to go back and beat that one. Fantastic games. Highly recommend those. You know, we just don't get games like Overlord these days. It was fantastic. Next up, I got another game. This is exclusive to Xbox 360, another World War II first-person shooter called Hour of Victory. This is awesome. You got to play as 3 different characters and different scenarios in World War II. Fantastic game. I did beat this on the normal setting, and then I started going through and playing it on its hardest difficulty. It has all your standard World War II weapons and stuff. Fight the Nazis. Really interesting characters. Had a really cool story. If you guys have never played it before and you like World War II first-person shooters, highly recommend Hour of Victory. Awesome game. Next up here is another one's a personal favorite of mine. I know my buddy Dean loved this, and that was the original Prey that was on the PC as well. This is really cool. You got the first-person shooter where you got to fight aliens and stuff. You play as Tommy, who's a Native American, and you get to unlock powers and stuff and fight these various aliens that are trying to take over Earth. It was really cool. Sadly, we never did get the sequel they had planned for it. There was another Prey that was released on the Xbox One and PS4, but it's a completely different game, just same name, but a different, totally different kind of game. But I really loved this one and highly, highly recommend. Prey was a wonderful first-person shooter, and I like the different powers you can unlock and the alien technology and fighting the various alien creatures and stuff. Had a really good story too. I loved Prey. Next up here is I'm a big fan of Marvel games, and I love Spider-Man, and there was a lot of great Spider-Man games released for the 360 and PS3, and this one was called Spider-Man Web of Shadows. Which I really loved about this is you could play as either regular Spider-Man or the black suit Spider-Man, and there's all kinds of various Spider-Man villains that appear, allies like Wolverine, Luke Cage, Venom is in this, all kinds of cool characters come through, and it's a sandbox open world where you can go through all of New York City and do different missions, go through the main story and stuff at your own time, and there's different areas that are getting taken over by different evil symbiotes and stuff that you get to then battle and go through the story and stuff, and city was really good. Do just have to warn you that sadly Spider-Man games for the 7th generation have become absolutely ridiculous in price. Some of these games are $60, $70, $80, $100. I've even seen some going for $150 locally for them. It's just crazy how expensive they are, but Marvel's absolutely hot right now, and people are gobbling up all the classic Spider-Man and X-Men and all those old games from 7th generation, and it's just driven up the prices, but it's a fantastic game. Love this one. Next up, this one here is Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, which I love Dead Rising. It started on Xbox 360, wasn't exclusive for a long time, where you got to play as Frank West, who is a photographer, and it's all set in the mall, and it's making fun of zombie movies and the cliche and your George Romero stuff and being in a mall and stuff, and you could do funny things. There was a story with some just ludicrous characters and outlandish villains to fight, and you had to save people, and there was a main story to go through, and the whole thing was just killing zombies, and then you could kind of do whatever you wanted throughout the mall. There was some time stuff where you could set up chairs and you could kill enemies, you could raid the mall, and you could put like helmets on the zombies, and it's just really interesting story, and they were really cool. Turned into a great franchises where you have, you know, Dead Rising 1, 2, 3, Dead Rising 4, and working on possibly making some new Dead Rising games. I remember playing number 3 on my Xbox One, and I love the game. Highly recommend the Dead Rising series. Awesome zombie game that's not super serious. There's some silly moments and stuff in it, but it was a really fun time. Highly recommend that one. I love the Elder Scrolls games. I first played Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind on the original Xbox, and then I got Oblivion, and then my favorite in the Elder Scrolls series was Skyrim, which we got released for Xbox 360. Of course, this has been ported to tons of consoles, even have modern versions of it you can play now, but at the time, this was so amazing. The world was the largest that I had ever seen in any of these games. It had so much content and stuff to do. They released a bunch of expansion packs for this eventually where they added even more content to the game. You get hundreds of hours. Really well polished game. It was plagued with some bugs and stuff that they obviously had to patch, which is always in Bethesda type titles. But it was an awesome experience, and I really loved it on Xbox 360. One of my personal favorites. Another one here, which I've actually talked about recently in some of my weekly playlist videos, is Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway. This was the sequel to the previous two games, the final game in the trilogy of Brothers in Arms games, where this is a first person but mixed with some third person when you get into cover and combat. It's not your typical it's not like a Call of Duty World War II shooter where you kind of just run around and Rambo and kill everybody. You know, you actually have to take your time and plan out stuff with strategy. You have different units you can command and tell to do suppressing fire or where to go, and you want to try to keep them alive. And you have to work on flanking the enemy because you can die real quickly even on the easiest difficulty setting. You know, you have to actually think, and the AI does a really good job. Your AI brothers in this do a good job of helping you kill enemies and stuff. It was a fantastic World War II first-person shooter / third-person that I definitely recommend. Another one here is a game called Quantum Theory by Koei Tecmo, which this game plays a lot like Gears of War, has a similar art style. It's a third-person cover shooter where you fight these weird alien or creatures in these different towers and stuff. Has a pretty unique story. It's a AA game. Is it the best game in the world? No, but it was one that I had a lot of fun with. I do need to go back and fully beat it, but these are just the type of games we just don't get today in 8th and 9th gen. You know, just don't go get games like Quantum Theory. That was an awesome one. Another one here, personal favorite racing game, was only released on Xbox 360. It's part of the Tokyo Extreme Racer series, but they dropped the Tokyo Extreme Racer name for some reason, and it is called Import Tuner Challenge, which I remember the first Tokyo Extreme Racer said Import Tuner Challenge, like magazine presents Tokyo Extreme Racer. I love these. I really wish this series would have continued. Genki created this series where you have different licensed vehicles and you run around the highways of Japan at night racing rivals and stuff and earning parts. It's definitely a real grindy game, but it has fantastic music. The visuals look amazing on Xbox 360. Sadly, this is not backwards compatible. I really wish this was. It would have looked amazing on the Xbox Series X. So only way you can play this is on the Xbox 360. I do have to warn you that it has become a quite pricey title as well, but it's a really fun. If you guys have played the previous Tokyo Extreme Racer games, highly recommend this one. This is the newest one they made, and we have not had another one in the series, sadly. I would love to see a new one for Xbox Series X. Fun little racer game where you get to do quick little short races. You have spirit bars where whoever's in the lead, the opponent's spirit bar goes down, and when it's completely depleted, they lose the race. And that's all takes place at night in the streets of Tokyo. They did a fantastic job with an HD version for the Xbox 360. Highly recommend that one. This next one is, now how can I talk about Xbox 360 without mentioning this series? And that is the Gears of War. Was exclusive to Xbox 360, but they eventually did port it to PC. I love this game. I remember going to the After Hours event where I went to GameStop. I got some free pizza and food, and we watched a little video of the opening gameplay of one of the first levels. It was such an awesome experience, and I also got a code to unlock some in-game content. This was one of my favorite series on Xbox 360. I loved the trilogy, and then we got Gears of War Judgment. Fantastic game, but I played through this and beat this multiple times. I even beat it solo on Insane, the hardest difficulty out there. I beat it on Insane, and that final boss battle was just absolutely brutal on Insane difficulty, but I did it, and I had an absolute blast with it. I played through 2 and beat it on Insane, 3 on Insane, and Judgment on Insane. Went through and beat all of them on the Insane difficulty solo, had fun with it, and then you could play it also in co-op. Had a wonderful story, great voice acting, had a fantastic dark story. I absolutely loved it. The commercials for this were amazing too. Gears of War, fantastic series. If you never played it, you have to. It's awesome. Another racing game here was Fuel. This was an awesome game. Loved it. It had 75 vehicles, 190 challenge, 70 career races, and 14,000 kilometer arena to go through. It had online multiplayer. I'm pretty sure that Fuel had one of the largest open worlds that you could explore of any game. I'm pretty sure this was the game. This was an awesome racing game. If you've never played it before, definitely recommend this one as well. Another one here that's pretty cool was Army of Two. This was awesome, where you got to play as two different soldiers. You could play it co-op, and you could, tell your AI partner to take like the aggro off of you, is to face different enemies and stuff. I really loved the story in this. I did play the second one as well. I love that one. It's a real shame that these Army of Two series kind of died off, but it was fantastic. You never fight alone. Master two-man combat with live or AI partner to form the deadliest private military partnership a government can buy. Unique co-op tactics, two-man online, so you can play it co-op online. It was really fun. Love the Army of Two series. Highly recommend that one. I love the sniper games. The sniper games got started on the original Xbox, but I got one here, Sniper Ghost Warrior, and this was the limited edition steelbook version where you get to go through as a sniper. It was really awesome. Had multiplayer and stuff. But as a Ghost Warrior, an elite sniper, and a highly trained special ops unit, your unique skills in the art of stalking, target detection, surveillance, and shooting actually will determine mission success. So really cool. Had wonderful stories. The whole sniper thing wasn't about big battles. It was about setting up your shot, taking your time, and killing those targets, and then having to escape that area once people were alerted and stuff. Really cool series that I definitely would recommend. Another one here. This was really cool because these started out on like the Sega Genesis and TurboGrafx, but this was Splatterhouse, which is cool, which you actually can unlock the old Splatterhouse games to play. This had a fun third-person game, real gory. There's some nudity and stuff in it, where the main character's girlfriend, you can find little pictures of her that are collectibles of her naked. It's cool. Super bloody, violent, gory. If you've never played Splatterhouse, I recommend it. I do have to warn you that this is another one of those titles that has become pricey for PS3 and 360. But it is a fantastic game, and I definitely need to go back and play through it again. It was a really fun horror game experience. Another one here, this is a personal favorite for me. I love this series, and this is my favorite of the three that we got. That was Dragon Age Origins. I pre-ordered and got this collector's edition, which came with extra DLC. It came with a cloth map and came with wallpapers and soundtrack and just all kinds of cool stuff. But this was a fun action RPG, but you can then pause and issue commands and stuff too. It had a really fun story. I've got the strategy guide for this. A lot of hours into this game, over 100 hours into this, and then they also released an expansion pack for it and DLC and stuff, and then we eventually got Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age 3, which was the Inquisition. Fantastic game. This is the one that started it for me. I put a lot of time and beat this, but it also had multiple endings. You could play as different characters, or you wanted to play as a mage or like a warrior or something. It had a little something for everyone. Had a huge story to go through and side missions and content and companions to unlock. Really love this game. They did a fantastic job with this. And there was another one here, personal favorite of mine, is the Fallout series, Fallout 3 here. This is the Game of the Year edition and has the 5 expansion packs that were released for it. But it started out, when I first played Fallout 3, it just blew my mind. It was just so awesome. The game world, I loved playing Fallout. Like, I'd played the previous Fallout games on PC, but those were, like isometric view. And this is the first time they got into like first person and third person views. You got to go through a great story and stuff. And I absolutely love Fallout 3. I beat this on the Xbox 360, but I also beat it on the PC, where of course there was tons of mods and stuff for it. It was just a really fun story. I loved going through and the various characters and the lore and the world. And then of course we got Fallout New Vegas, which is another one that was really awesome. It took everything that was great about this one and expanded even more. And eventually, we got Fallout 4, and that game is amazing as well. Fantastic game. Would love to see a new Fallout game here in the future, but that was awesome. Another AA game here that I have beat. Loved it. Really violent and gory, naked women, all that, is Conan, which I do love the Conan character, and you get to play through this Conan third-person adventure game. Is it the best game in the world? No, there's some issues and stuff with controlling and cameras at time, but this was a really fun game, really brutal, awesome game. Decimate your enemies, cut off limbs and stuff. Very violent and bloody and gory. If you're looking for a really cool game and you like Conan, I highly recommend Conan. It was also on PlayStation 3. Fantastic game. Love this one. Another good first-person game here was Condemned Criminal Origins. I loved this game. It's a psychological horror game that's first-person shooter, but there's not as many guns as there's a lot of melee thing where you have to dodge, you have to block and counter enemies. You are chasing down a serial killer and investigating, and you run into all kinds of weird, crazy shit happens to you, and see things that are happening, and there's some creatures to fight and crazy people to battle. Had a fantastic story, and then there was a sequel, Criminal Origins 2, that I loved. Not as good as this one, but it was still a fantastic game. Highly recommend this one. If you've never played the Condemned games, highly recommend both of them. They're fantastic games, and they're priced fairly well. Another one here was only on Xbox 360 was Alan Wake, which this did eventually get ported to the Xbox One and PS4. This is an awesome game. I played through and beat this multiple times, even on the hardest difficulty. You play as Alan Wake, who is a writer, and you go through, you're on your vacation with your wife in this town of Bright Falls, and he's a writer, and he finds out that this darkness had tricked him into writing a story that's actually coming true, and it keeps throwing all these enemies called Taken, which are people who have been taken over by the darkness. And the whole mechanic of the game is you have to burn this darkness with your flashlight or light source off of the enemies before they're vulnerable. After that, you can dispatch them with a handgun, a shotgun, a rifle, flashbangs, and Alan has a bunch of things to dispatch them with, and it has a wonderful story. It's just a heavily story-focused game, so guys, wouldn't recommend any story for you. Highly recommend it. I can't wait for Alan Wake 2 that they have in the works. That's going to be coming out for 9th gen. I'm looking forward to that. There was a little standalone game called Alan Wake's American Nightmare, which is a little arcade game that you can play. It'll take you a couple hours to beat. That's another fantastic one. I loved Alan Wake. I even owned the collector's edition for it because I loved it that much. Another first-person shooter here that's fantastic. Another one like we won't see in 8th or 9th gen anymore is like Black Site Area 51, a Midway game where you get to fight aliens and stuff. It's a first-person shooter similar to like the Area 51 game that was on the original Xbox. This is awesome. I love this game, but we just don't get first-person shooters like this. Now, is it the best game in the world? Of course not, but it's still really fun and one I would highly recommend. Black Site Area 51. We even got some Command & Conquer games on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Of course, Command & Conquer started on the PC, and that's the best way to play it. But for console ports, they're done really well. And this is Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars. There also was an expansion to this, and there was also Command & Conquer Red Alert 3, which I love Command & Conquer games. I actually beat all of these on the Xbox 360. Michael Ironside is in this and does the video. I can't remember what the guy's name is who played Kane, but still has all the cool visuals and live action segments where the characters talk to you as the commander, and it's a RTS, which I love RTSs, and the game plays well and looks great on the Xbox 360 and PS3. Highly recommend Command & Conquer series. If you like RTS and you've never played them before, definitely pick them up. They're great. Last one we're going to talk about for Xbox 360 is the Mass Effect series. I remember when I first played this game, you got to play as Commander Shepard, and you got to go through a story. This was originally exclusive to Xbox 360, but it was eventually ported to PlayStation 3. Huge open world story. There's actually a whole trilogy you get to play through: Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3, and then they eventually did release that Andromeda version. But this first one was just an absolute blast to play through. I got a lot of hours in this, well over 100 hours. So much side content, characters to interact, go to different worlds and stories to go through, different endings depending on your choices in the game world. It was just a really fun game, and then your choices continued over into the second and third games. But I could not talk about 7th generation without talking about Mass Effect, another awesome game from BioWare. That was fantastic. And then I've got just one Wii game I'm going to talk about. As for me, Wii is mostly was for like the first-party Nintendo games like this one, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, when they finally went back to the 2D-style Mario titles of the past, but with update where you could play with 4 players. You got to go through a whole new story with updated graphics and stuff, high definition, and it just was really fun to play. I actually did 100% this game with my son when he was younger. He went through and completely beat it on my Super Mario Brothers Red Wii, the 25th anniversary console version. It was an awesome game. I had a lot of fun with it. So I just wanted to show you guys some of the games. I mean, I could sit here for another 20 hours talking about all the different games that I've played for 7th generation. I have a huge library of Xbox 360 games. I'm working on expanding my PS3 library because there was a lot of games I missed out on, because at the time I really only played 360, and then I eventually did get a PS3. But I loved the 7th generation of consoles. You know, that is when I feel gaming peaked personally for me. You know, we had such a huge emphasis on single-player games. Developers really took risks. We got a lot of new great IPs that we're still playing today, got their start in 7th generation. You know, they actually took chances. Nowadays, you know, they don't really like to take as much risk because they don't want to lose any money, so they kind of just regurgitate what's already been released and, you know, just keep the same. You know, we got the next Halo and the next Gears again, you know, instead of coming up with new IPs like they did. You know, you don't get as many AA games that we received in 7th generation. You do have a lot of indie developers today, which is cool, but you don't have as many of the AA games studios and stuff releasing games that weren't, you know, the top of the tier, but they weren't garbage either. They were kind of in between, you know. And those were the kind of innovations and games that we got in 7th generation, and that is why the 7th generation is my absolute favorite. But I would love to know what your guys' favorite generation is. What's your favorite generation of all time? You know, you guys can answer this as a question, or you can film a video response. I just ask, if you do film a video response, let me know about it so I can check it out, and I will post a link to your video. You will also get entries into the contest that I'll be holding at the end of this series. So you have plenty of chances to enter. As long as the contest hasn't concluded, you can go back and answer any of my previous questions. Want to thank you guys for watching. Take care. You guys have an amazing day. And Sleepy will see you next time.